Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me today, Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, national development advocate, and fellow, Institute of Leadership Coaching and Strategy. Now, to our next subject of the day, one of Nigeria's leading civil society organizations, Enough is Enough, Nigeria. This past Wednesday marked its 15th anniversary here in Lagos, celebrating its contributions to civic engagement, government accountability, and youth empowerment across the country. The event, themed Footprints and Frontlines, featured the launch of the second edition of the organization's flagship book on active citizenship, Footprints 2.0, which foreword was written by the late Dr. Christopher Kolade, who was a boardroom icon, diplomat, and broadcaster. Dr. Matthew Kuka, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, delivered pre-recorded remarks praising the organization for its courage, determination, and commitment to justice, fairness, and equity. And there were, of course, other speakers. I was there, Mr. Fola Adiola, and others. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, yes, the Emir of Kano, Sanusi II, Dr. Mubola Johnson, and a host of others. And there was a film show and all that. And there was pepper soup and everything. But I missed that part. Hey. No, you promised, you delivered. But I missed that part. But I was there when the film was being shown. Now, here is the interesting part. Our own Opeyemi Adamolekun, who is an integral part of this program, has served as Executive Director of Enough is Enough almost for the entire period of its existence, piloting and coordinating its activities through this sometimes very turbulent period in the intervening years. Now she's run a race in that role and handed over to Ufoma Nnamdi Ude, who is now Executive Director. Opeyemi Adamolekun joins me right now, not as a panelist as usual, but as a distinguished guest and as an august visitor to our own table. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Footprints, milestones. 2010 to 2015. You were saying in This Day Style this morning that you were an accidental leader. But, many will commend you that this has been a brilliant run. Office of the Citizen, RSVP, which was also a concept. You were there, Bring Back Our Girls. You were there at NSAS. You were at the barricades all through. What would you say has been the impact, the real message, particularly about active citizenship, the Office of the Citizen as the best place to be?
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. I think so. At the anniversary event, we premiered a short film called One Voice, Many Echoes. And the idea was to show that over the course of Nigeria's history, it's not always been organized civil society that has mobilized citizens. So we started in 1993 with Concerned Professionals, started by Tedo Peterside, Patutomi, both bankers, Konya Ajayi, a lawyer, Aswe Gudalo, a lawyer, Obiese Kosili. They were all members of Concerned Professionals. Not in any organization, but in the response to the annulment of the June 12 elections, they started organizing, basically saying that Nigeria wanted to get out of military rule. That was 1993. You fast forward to 2010, that gave rise to Enough is Enough. Then you had Adebola Williams, Chude Jidonwo, Obi Azika, Audu. So you had entertainment, media, young professionals as well, who on the back of our doctrine of necessity with Goodluck Jonathan and our missing president, also said, in a sense, enough is enough. And they also started mobilizing. Fast forward another 10 years, you then had NSAS, also led by citizens, I think triggered by a tweet. So the idea or the real core of our message on active citizenship is that it's not something you outsource to an organized group. It's something that you take on because you're a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that our democracy is not just about elections. Yes, we vote, but beyond that, the people that have put themselves forward to work and serve, they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, but there's something about access to citizenship. The ordinary Nigerian understanding his rights, and he or she understanding that he has the power of agency and he has a voice. Now, that will require educating the
Yes.
people, mobilizing the people. How challenging has that been?
It's very challenging because there's nothing really embedded. So even though Nigeria is a democracy, there's nothing embedded in our culture, or in our curriculum, school or culture, or the way we do things that actually amplifies that. And that obviously works for our political elites, because the less people know that they have voice and agency, the more we can have a bit of the anyhowness we do see. I mean, your previous guest, for example, was talking about political parties and people decamping and one-party state. And he used the statement that a political party, or I guess a governor or whatever of a state, said we have assessed the risk and we have decided to then join the APC. There's a fundamental problem in that statement. How is your choice of freedom, if it's supposedly freedom of association, predicated on a risk? The risk is that if we don't join, elections might not be free and fair. If we don't join, they might start hunting people for fraud or for corruption or whatever it is. So there's a fundamental problem therein in terms of understanding in the context that we have. And you're right. The long play is to educate, and that it's a challenge. It's the problem that needs to be solved, to get more citizens to understand their rights and responsibilities.
Okay, but we have a phenomenon now, in terms of succession. You are stepping down, a successor has been appointed, but we have this Gen Z phenomenon that we have seen in Kenya, we have seen in Bangladesh,
Nepal,
we have seen in Nepal,
Sri Lanka.
we have seen in Morocco, Sri Lanka, but these young people, driven by technology, sometimes the leadership is so amorphous, so loose. The sense of organization that you were talking about, they don't always have it. And yet they seem to make some kind of impact. Is that the way forward? Is that what the future represents?
They do. I mean, I think when they say they're leaderless, it's almost as the point they're trying to make is that there's no one person that you can come and arrest. But you can't have a movement of the scales that we've seen in the countries that you've mentioned if there's not an engine room. So there's always an engine room. There are always people who are planning, who are organizing, who are coordinating in a sense. But the way we've been used to someone being the arrowhead of a protest or whatever is what they're trying to get away from, that we're all in this together. So if you want to arrest all of us, come and carry all of us. And you're right. I mean, there is something there they're taking ownership of their countries, as we've seen in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the countries that you've mentioned. And not only is it a protest, I think it was Nepal that was a recent one. Not only did they protest, they had a plan for, after we've removed the president, this is the person we want to come in. That takes some level of organization. That takes some level of connectedness, that you can say we're all speaking at one voice. NSAS was a perfect example. Not organized, so it was leaderless. There was an engine room, but there was a fear to take responsibility. Because at the end of the day, you have to say, we have decided that this is what we want. If you can't do that, then there's a gap in how you transition from a protest that is visibly seen as quite fierce to then being able to make demands that government listens to.
Okay, well, another area that I've had someone comment upon is about funding. Now, many of these civil society groups, they get funding from international organizations. Now, take, for example, that route from the United States will appear under Trump, to drying up gradually, and maybe, the funding from Europe may not be as robust and from elsewhere. So how do we get stakeholders in Nigeria, particularly the private sector, to buy into this civic space that we need to further expand? Or is it that the private sector in Nigeria is very skeptical because most of them, they do government business anyway, and the government business is big business?
It is indeed. And not only is government business big business, it's also business that could easily be stopped. So there's also the fear that if government feels that you are, in a sense, supporting the enemy, because sometimes civil society organizations are seen as the enemy. And the enemy, why? The enemy because we're demanding accountability. So if I'm defined as an enemy because I'm asking you to do your job, the definition of your job is that you're a public servant, so you're serving the people. So it is a challenge, and I agree, for private sector players. But there are ways that private sector players, because at the end of the day, it's civic education. And so if it's, EIE has a very strong reputation of being very protest-focused. But if we move away from protesting and mobilizing people to the streets, and then we're talking about just educating citizens about the Constitution. It's a legal document. we're using radio, TV, social media. There might be a middle ground in that, or something like a short film, so that we're documenting our history, we're sharing, we're educating. There's a soft place in there that private sector, not just private sector, but also individuals. I mean, one of the things EIE has is what we call EIE enablers. And there are people who give us amounts of money every month. So some people give us 1,000 naira every month. Some give us 5, some give us 50. But the idea is to support our work on radio, our work on social media, educating secondary school students. That is not, you're not funding a protest, you're funding civic education.
Okay, you said in your interview with This Day Star this morning that, well, having turned 50, you think you should move on to other things. 50 will look like a very young age.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so why... Are you retiring?
Oh, no.
What's
no,
next?
No.
I mean, because so many people are used to you, standing at the barricades and, demanding accountability and good governance. So what's going to happen now?
But I mean, you're right.
What's next? What's the next?
You're right about 50 seeing a young age. But I think what's important for me within this context is that Nigeria's EIE's main demographic is 18 to 35-year-olds, because they're Nigeria's largest voting demographic. I started leading EIE when I was 36. Now, and I do believe very strongly that that demographic needs to be led by one of their own. I mean, I can hire a team of young people and, as you always say, be doing the challenges of managing a Gen Z team, which I don't think I want the headache of doing. But I think more importantly, there's something that comes with leadership and authority coming from one of their own that can understand, like, we're all going in this direction together. We all grew up in this Nigeria. I'm 26, my successor is 26, 25, 24, 28. We all grew up in this Nigeria together, and this is the Nigeria we want for ourselves. So let's create the Nigeria we want, and let's drive it. I think it's a stronger message for my successor to be able to mobilize this our Gen Z on. And for me, a few things. I want to teach. I look forward to teaching. I want to write, and then a few other things that we'll see.
Okay, but 15 years. Do you think anybody has been listening, particularly in the corridors of power? Do you see some, positive stories in terms of governance and accountability, or it's like pouring water off the back of a duck?
I think they're certainly listening. So, and in both a positive and negative way. So if you're freezing our bank accounts, which has been done in the past, you're certainly listening, because we're saying something that's upsetting you, for you to freeze our bank accounts. But we're also seeing communities engage. I mean, the recent success story is a community, total local government in Nasarawa, where there was no water. We worked with the community to engage the local government chairman, and now they have a borehole. So that we see, and we've seen stories like that. We just need to amplify them more and let citizens know that they can do that. So certainly, I would say that they are listening, not as much as we would like, but the stories can be amplified, and will be amplified, I should say. Well,
on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Opeyemi Adamolekun. The retiring executive director in office enough, but still very active in this civil space. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.